Samuel Hill voice was in your wallet. I got that fire. I got that fire. I got that fire. Fire, fire, fire. I got that fire.
Yes, y'all. What it do? Another episode of the Big Black Sports Show. It's your man, 50 Grand Kevin Barnes, the militant with a microphone, the mouthpiece of the movement, a.k.a. the Negro Whisperer. And I'm in the building tonight for, like I said, another edition of the Big Black Sports Show, which is what we do on Tuesdays. So tell a friend to tell a friend, man. Hit like, hit share, hit follow. We'll talk about why I chose to do a sports show, why sports is important. We'll do all of that as we move along. I want to shout out to my boy, Big Tank, Coach Larry Purdue, who's normally my co-pilot here on the show. He was unable to join me tonight, and he's going to miss out on a very, very good conversation with a very, very, very positive brother. But he can watch it just like you can, because all the shows are archived on my personal page. That's my government name, Kevin Barnes. And then I have the People's News Network, which is my sister Facebook group. And all the shows are there. They're all over the place because everybody supports the People's Network. So it's all love, man. So 414, stand up. Let's make it do what it do. So I said before, why do I talk about sports? Because sports is very important when it comes to the Black community, whether it's a way out or whether it's just a conversation piece. But the main thing is that there's such a connection between what's going on in our country in terms of race relations and social justice and sports, right? And so sports mirrors society, especially if you talk about the inequities and some of the double standards that's employed by a lot of sports leagues, and in particular, a lot of sports owners. So check this out. Monday nights, we do Outlaw Radio. Tuesday, we do the Big Black Sports Show. Tomorrow night, I got another edition of Outlaw Radio coming in. On Thursday, I'm going to bust Outlaw Nation this week with my sister Jazzy. So that's going to be another positive conversation. But with no further ado, I would like to welcome this brother to the show. This is his first time being here. I'm hoping that this will be the first of many appearances. If you don't know him, you will get to know him tonight. My brother, tell these people who you are and what you do.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Evan Kern, Milwaukee native, born and raised here, went to school, graduated, did everything I was supposed to do. I ended up coming back to Milwaukee. When I came back to Milwaukee, I literally jumped back into the first thing that I knew, which was youth sports. I went back to the team that basically I grew up playing in. And ever since then, the ball just kind of kept rolling. I've been in youth sports ever since. And I guess that's just kind of really my lane that I'm finding myself in. It's just my lane is where I feel most comfortable.
So I pretty much pride myself on trying to promote or collaborate with anybody that's on something positive or progressive in the community. And you talked about youth sports, but it's not just youth sports. We talking about youth football, okay? We talking about the game of kings, right? Better than diamond rings. I don't know if y'all old as me. Football. I don't know if y'all remember Wildcats back in the days. But so youth sports. And so I've been working with youth in our community for about 20 years. So anytime there's somebody else who's doing big things, doing positive things with kids, I'm always like, okay, that's a good brother. Now, I happen to have a very personal connection to you because years ago, my son, in the beginning of him wanting to be a football player, okay, and so like my son who grew up around me coaching, I was coaching high school at the time, and it became something because before that, this was a mama's boy who didn't, he didn't want nothing to do with me. Actually, my daughter was like, who, daddy. But once I started coaching, I don't know what happened when he was about 3. He we just got really Velcro close together. So he wants to play. And he played in a different league. I played him his first year. I coached him, but I was coaching high school. It was very hard for me to do both at the same time. So I said, I got to put him somewhere. So I was just driving. I'm driving up Silver Spring, and I look and I see this big group of people, and I see kids running around in football equipment. So I point and I say, hey, you want to play again? He goes, yeah. So I take him. It turns out to be the NCSL Falcons, right? Which at that time, I didn't know that the Falcons was what the Falcons was. Because you all had a very, very, and believe me, I've been around the block a couple times with coaching. So you had a very strong organization at that point. So I remember being kind of like, okay, well, this is what's up. So I put him into your league, and you were over it. Okay, so now, so I don't want to go too far. I want to go too far too fast because I want people to really be able to hear your story. So now you talked about the Falcons being something that you kind of got involved with as a youngster, right?
Yeah.
Because I know I grew up. I know I'm a little bit older than you, but I grew up during a time when up to a point AAU, which was I'm sorry, AFY, Athletes for Youth, was pretty much the preeminent youth sports league. Okay, so now I always tell people my formative years from about 85 to 95 have me going from about 10 years old to about 20 years old, right? And so I grew up in the crack epidemic, basically, make a long story short. AFY was robbed by the time I got old enough to play. I remember I went out for the Northcott neighborhood Vikings. We practiced. I learned all this stuff about football. We get to Northcott. They had just built a brand new, beautiful building.
Yeah.
All our pads are gone. All of them gone, right? Like so, and so I didn't get to play that year, but I was bit by the bug. Because just want to be a football player with some from, you know, just from a little shorty for me. But so I ended up going out the next year. They had a team. I'm going to high school next year. I'm done. I'm not gonna play this. They try to move me to center or some shit. I'm like, nah, not what I do. Right? So, but I said all that to say football has been an integral part of my life. So you come back from school. Let's talk about what you did in high school because you was a pretty accomplished football player in high school, correct?
Yeah, man. So I started off with the Falcons. That was really where I started at. It's crazy that you mentioned kind of that relationship with your son, because when I go back and talk to my dad about it, it's literally the same story.
Okay.
Moms and pops split up early, and pops was just trying to find a way to just kind of get back in the groove with me. And so football was kind of that thing. And so he put the ball in my hand. Started off terrible, but it's something I just stuck with. And then it just turned into something. So I got locked into it, and then I got introduced to basketball. I was running with basketball and football real hard, basically through middle school, and then I ended up going to Marquette High School.
Okay.
Marquette High School, yeah, private school. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't really care where I was going at the time. I just ended up going there. My family was like, "You going there?" So I got there, found out it was a all white, private, Catholic, all boys high school, and I was just like, man, I didn't really have nothing but sports.
Right.
So man, I stayed with sports. That was just my thing. That's how I met everybody. And so I just stuck with it until I graduated. I had the chance to stick with track, but I actually chose football. Like football was just like, man, I connect better with guys that play football. I love football, and so I had the chance to play down at TCU, Texas Christian in Fort Worth, and so that was D1 ball, and so I'd never seen anything like it, So I'm up there and I'm running with the big dogs now, and so that was really kind of where my experience led me to. I had no idea where the game was going to take me, and I just had to come back and give back to the game.
Yeah, and that's why I always tell people it's so important because I can tell any and everybody that if it's not for football, I don't know how my story would have ended. I don't know if I'd just be getting out or if I'd still be waiting for a couple more years to pass before my release date came up. But it wasn't heading in a positive direction. And the game of football saved my life. I didn't get to go to TCU, but I did get to, go off to college and play. I got paid for my college degree, my college education, and it just changed the course of my life. Okay, so now, it's funny because football is so like right now the controversy around, my son, he wants to play football. Should I put him out there? He might get hurt. And during my generation, fathers didn't worry about that. Mothers didn't worry about that. It was like, you ain't get your ass out there, right? And so I remember my son who actually was and I could see it in him. He just was a little guy, but he had a lot of heart. But he
Yeah,
was shook. He was shook. And we talk about this all the time. He was shook. Especially because people don't also understand that by this time the NCSL was a big deal. So like we walk in the park on a Saturday morning, it's
it's
four or
cracking.
500 people there,
It's
right?
cracking.
Right. So it's people cheering his people and Kevin's looking around like and I wasn't coaching him. So that was another thing where it was kind of like, well, hold on, man. Like, so,
Yeah,
and I guess he had been doing really well in practice, but he was super scared. He don't
yeah.
want me to tell his
Let
story.
me let me jump in, coach. He was ready. he was ready, like literally, like he knew so much about football. You know, he could speak the game, he could speak the language. He was loud. Like, man, I vividly remember, you know, him being in practice, and then it was just when we got to the game.
Oh my God.
I was like, I don't know what he won't go in the game.
Man, I couldn't even, and it's, as a father, for me, it's not about, and it never was, because honestly, I never expected my son to be an athlete because I was. So I thought, well, be prepared that if he wants to do something else, that you
Right.
just support him in it, right? It was just like I said, once he was around me coaching, and at the time I was coaching at Madison, and like he was there every day, every practice. So he was soaking it up like a sponge.
You could tell.
But it's that when he got there, and I like, I wasn't mad because of he wouldn't go in the game. What I was trying to tell him is one thing you can never do in life is let fear rob you of an opportunity. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. If you don't really love it, don't do it. But if you want to, but you're scared,
Yeah.
don't let that be the deterrent factor. So
Right.
that didn't work, basically. I'll tell you that. And I had gone through this his first year playing, but I managed to get him back and he played. He ended up having a good season. But this year, I'm like, the same shit again? You gonna do this? I'm like, man, I done paid this money. And I remember I had a conversation with you because it happened the second game as well. And I think we finally got him to go in at the end a little bit, but it was nothing major. So I said, yo, I'm not going to waste your time. I'm not going to waste my time. I'm not going to waste money. I'm just going to pull this cat out. And you was like, no. You're not pulling him out.
I didn't want you to. He was right there.
Right. Yeah. You said, no. I tell you what I'm going to do. I ain't going to put him at quarterback. I'm going to put him at cornerback where he can see the whole field, and he's going to play and he's going to start and he's going to be good. Yeah. And I said, all right, man, if you sure, because I was so pissed off. And he's like, no. You was like, no. And he still plays cornerback to this day.
Let's go. Hey, that's what's up.
Yeah. And actually after that, number one, we never had that. I never had that problem again with him being scared. Yeah. But he really enjoyed the time that he played with the Falcons. Now, so I can say, and this was, I guess 10 years ago, maybe. Well, no, about 8, because he's 15 now. So about 8 years ago, because I got pictures of it, and I'm like,
he was 7.
It was. Okay. So he was really tiny, but there were so many of those boys out there on that field that to this day we've gone places. My son has played in different leagues. Kids coming to me and say, I know you. And I'm like, I don't know you, son. And it's no, you haven't played for the Falcons. I remember Kevin, like. So all of those kids, man, that were being served by what you all were doing, and it wasn't just sports. It was, we had cheerleaders. You were doing like outings with the kids and community service with the kids. Yeah. So it was a real positive thing, man. So y'all really had and you all was winning championships, unfortunately, because like the next year he came back and had a really good year for y'all, and we lost the championship game. And it's funny because later on, my son played with Corey Smith, who goes to Catholic Memorial now, who's a state champion, been offered by about 12, 13 D1 colleges as a sophomore, right? Yeah. Corey was playing for the Ravens, and that's the team that beat us, that we had beat earlier in the year. So Corey was the running back that day. A lot of people I'm like, yeah. And I knew then when I saw him, like, that kid right there is something else. And we ended up playing with him later on, because Kevin played with a bunch of teams after that, because we moved and we had to move. We stopped coaching at Madison and we went to Washington, took over Washington. We moved. So I said, damn, it's too far out the way. So I had to take him off the Falcons. But we always would come back to Lincoln Park, and he would always say, Dad, let's go by Lincoln. I want to go watch. And he was still friends with a lot of them kids, man. So I did a good job, man. Y'all was doing y'all thing, man. Shout out to you, Tiarsha Arthur. She's a supporter of ours. She said, good evening. And so like the conversation now, right? With our young people. Yeah. And I'm gonna get to city conference football in just about a second, right? Come on, like for real. I coached city conference football for about 12 years. And it was a struggle, right? It was pretty tough. It was tough sledding, and we always got destroyed in the playoffs. So it's a special place in my heart for city conference football, because I played city conference football. I played for King. And like I said, it saved my life. But so What do you think as a youngster? What do you think drew you to the game? What made you love it so much where you was like, nah, this is what I'm doing?
For me, I think it was just potential.
Okay.
Like for somebody else to like see things in you,
Mhm.
like no, you good at that. People had to give me that feedback, and I think that's what drove me to like, all right, I'm gonna keep working on it. And so like I think at a young age, I was just kind of obsessed with potential, like the fact that like we have untapped like unlimited potential. Like I just always wanted to tap into that, and I just knew that you had to work at it. But the fact that I could go out there and just kind of get my shine on, and I found something I was good at, like, man, I got to run with this. Like I'd be
Yeah.
crazy not to.
Yeah, I know. My father and I like I boycott the NFL about a lot of things because I think the NFL is egregious in a lot of ways in terms of how they treat their black players, right? But I always have to watch a Packer game. I don't own any apparel. I don't, and I don't watch much other football. And I used to be like a junkie, like where I'm gonna watch everything
Everything,
from the
everything.
pregame show all the way till late at night. I'm still watching the highlights over and over.
Yeah,
But now because of the way with if you talk about Colin Kaepernick, you talk about the lack of black coaches and you talk about the lack of black owners, I have to boycott the NFL. But I watch the Packer games because my dad, when I was a very young kid, would say, "Come on in here and watch this game with me, boy." And like you said, once I started to figure it out, right? Like once I could tell him, like he could leave a room and come back and say, "Well, what happened?" And I say, "Well, they went for it on third down. It was third and long." And
right.
and he would look at me and say, "Boy, you you know all that." And I would,
Yeah,
the more I knew about it, the more he was impressed. So because my father and I were kind of different, like he was more of a blue collar kind of dude. I wasn't really interested in fixing no cars, no shit like that. My brother was with that. I was like, nah, I'm good. I'm good on that. I don't like nothing on my hands. But football just, and I grew up down the street from Rufus King, and at that time it had a stadium. So we used to sneak and watch the games, and it was just always a big thing. Homecoming parade coming down the street. And I used to be like, man, how do
yeah,
you get the girls to cheer for you like that? And I discovered that it was football. So, and like you said, it was such a confidence booster to know that there was something that you were really good at. You know what I mean? Because I was for all intents and purposes a fuck up in high school, right? Like I just, just it was the 90s, man. It was the 80s. It was like, Milwaukee was a rough city. So, I was all over the place, but my high school football coach always say how he saved my life. So, have you thought about how many young men's lives you've actually touched? Do they ever come up to you? Because I know I get it all the time when I'm out with kids, where somebody will come up to me, you had me in St. Charles, or I was in your class at Webster, or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. So has it dawned on you how many kids you actually touched? Well, not touched, but you know what I
yeah,
mean.
yeah. No, I get what you're saying. Honestly, no, I mean I could think about the kids. I mean the how big our teams were back then, and then not only with the Falcons. I mean the Falcons was a huge organization, just standalone. But then after that, I ended up moving on to the league, which now you can multiply that by man, six or seven, seven times. At this point, it's even bigger than that. So I can't imagine how many kids I guess I've been in front of, but one thing that that does dawn on me now is like I saw somebody doing this when I was younger. Like it used to be a good, it was a couple guys, that just were doing this. It was a dude named Kevin Smith. He used to run NCSL, the basketball league. He was a ball head dude, like could shoot like everything. And so you see these influences as you growing up, but you just don't know how the chips gonna really fall. But when I saw certain lanes open up, I'm like, yo, I could do this. I know I got people, that would support me in it. And so I just kind of just went with how the cards unfolded for me. But I always just kind of stuck to the game because that's what I know. I know the game.
Yeah, I still see kids who have moved out of town that are playing elsewhere in high school that play for the Falcons. And people always used to people. I can't remember where I was, and I said because my son ended up playing basketball too. Like he
Yeah,
really, because that's one of his things now. He loves basketball,
yeah.
um, and so I'm just kind of annoyed by the whole AAU thing. But it's another show. But I was like talking to somebody at one of the games, and football somehow came up, and they said, "Well, I heard he plays football too," and I'm like, "Yeah," and they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, he's been playing since he was little. And they said, well, who did he play for? And I said, the Falcons. And it was another parent. He said, oh man, I remember the Falcons. It was like Oregon. How many different uniforms did they have? And I just laughed because I'm like, yeah, the Falcons were easily the class of the NCSL when my son was there. We had so many different uniform combinations. You had the
Right.
cheerleaders, you had the strong parent support. It
Yeah.
was what junior Pee Wee League football should be about. And I went on to my son was in different programs, and some of the programs, I'm gonna be honest with you, were horrible. Like in
Yeah.
terms of where I had to kind of step in and say, you know what, I'm gonna help you coach, bro, or
Yeah.
I'm gonna do this or I'm gonna do that because the parental involvement wasn't there, the funding wasn't there, or whatever, what have you. Um,
Man.
but
So
I
so
mean,
frustrating.
yeah, well, I mean, but see, as kids get older, a lot of times, especially in Milwaukee. Now, in other places, it's a little bit different. But as kids get older, the parental support kind of goes away.
Yeah.
Now, and I'm working on getting my brother Jeremy Nimitz on here, who's another dude who has
Yeah.
worked in youth football in Milwaukee for about 30 years, right? Like I
Yeah.
played against Jeremy when he went to Marshall, but my son ended up playing for him with the Junior Generals. They It was a nationally ranked team. We were in the Chicago League. We ended up going down there, winning the Chicago League. We got rings and everything. But there was tremendous parental support. There was
Yeah.
tremendous funding. We traveled well, we ate well. The parents were there, to make sure everything was taken care of. And I'm not gonna name, I mean, he played for the East Side Steelers with Andre Powell, who has moved on. So
Yeah.
so
Yeah. I know, Andre.
yeah, so but so I've seen some really good ones, and I'm not gonna name some of the bad ones I've seen, but I've seen some where it's like parents just pull up and basically kick their kids out the car and pull off. Coaches there until 9 o'clock at night waiting on somebody to come get the kid.
Uh,
You send out 16 texts to bring water. Somebody please bring water. Like
please.
right, the uniforms is old. I've seen it, but I don't think people understand how important it is to support kids in whatever endeavor they are engaged in at an early age. It
Yeah.
gives them such a strong foundation to build off of. Um, and in a lot of cases for boys, a lot of people don't know boys really when you're younger, you full of doubt, right? Like you don't
Yeah.
know you trying to be somebody. The big boys won't let you roll with them. The girls is kind of hard, kind of rough on you,
Yeah.
and you trying to find your spot. I'm just trying to find. I need to figure out where I'm at. And a lot of times sports becomes kind of that thing. I've seen kids grow from the ugly duckling to the prince of the ball through sports. Like from coaching high school, I've seen kids come in as freshmen, and I'm laughing at this dude. Like, look at this dude. His feet too
Yeah.
big,
Yeah.
his glasses too thick. And 4 years later, he's a stud football
Be the
player
man.
because he stuck with us and he walk around cocky. And I'm laughing. What you laughing at, coach? How you looked when you first came here, right?
Right. You got to remind them.
Right. And that's where I have a picture like this was you. You was this dude, right? And man, so many experiences. And like I say, I'm older, so I've had kids who've gone on to get master's degrees that I coach that come back and say, Coach, y'all got me into school. I never would have been in college. I know where I was going. I'm so grateful for you, man. And so I know how it feels. And I can tell you better get ready because a lot of those kids that play with my son are now about to be
Yeah.
juniors in high school. So pretty soon they're gonna be
Yeah.
done and they'll be adults. And it's a shame that we don't have the transitional piece involved to take these kids from Pee Wee League football to high school football.
Yeah.
Now, I understand the quality of MPS is a major issue, right? Like, because when my son got to eighth grade, I said, nah, I can't do MPS for him. I had to send him to a private school. And so I said, I'd rather, and especially if you want to play football, you're going to play in the suburbs because it's just a better quality of football and it'll take you a lot further in terms of recruiting. If you're going to play, if this is what you want to do. But so let's talk about now. What do you think the problem is? Aside from people really just not putting their kids in MPS, but have you paid any attention to city conference football? Have you been to some games, some practices, or any
Uh,
kind of observation?
yeah. I've been around since I've been back. Like obviously, I just jumped right back into youth sports, but kind of like I was kind of on a mission of like, man, what really kind of brought me back was like I want to figure out why is it that like Milwaukee wasn't a hotbed for kids to get recruited. Like during my time when I graduated, 2007, like it wasn't even happening. Like maybe one guy per year, may go. John Clay, Nick Polk, like, it was always just kind of one guy. It was never a hotbed, and I wanted to figure out why. And so I came back and I jumped into youth sports, but I'm like, I literally like, man, it's like a knot, like a ball of yarn that I just can't figure out because it's like we don't have the feeder programs. You can go to any MPS school in the city, but there's no like program. You go to Whitefish Bay, you in that program all the way through. And I think that's why, eventually, some parents choose the suburban programs. But I just, ultimately, like, I kind of been around, and I don't know if that's a big part of it. It's hard to kind of get those guys together. Right now, I'm just starting to coach high school football. I coach at MAS. So we kind of we getting off the ground over there. So not in the city conference. We kind of play like a non-conference type of schedule. But I'm just kind of getting my feet wet, just being hands-on with them. But I just wonder if that feeder program like that really sets us, behind when you don't know those kids. Like I've been seeing these kids. I coach their older brothers. Like that's the kind of stuff that, was happening at Marquette. But when you get to MPS, it's like it's a inner city. I'm just gonna say inner city. When you get there, it's just it's a little bit more of a free for all. But a lot of talent here. I gotta say that it's a lot of talent here. That again, like we just ain't been in systems like that. I think
Right.
that's what
And I can say you are exactly entirely correct when you say talent, because most of those black kids that are shining in these suburban leagues are from the
right.
city.
Right.
And when you talk to them and say, "Well, what you doing out here?" Hey, mom's this where mom's put me. And you say, he said, I grew up on Center. I grew up on Burla. I'm off north. I'm off. And you say, "Well, what you doing out here?" But I do understand it because, okay, so here's the deal. The socioeconomic conditions in Milwaukee eat students alive, right? And so I still have a lot of homies, and that's why I wish Coach Tank was here, because he's still coaching. We started off coaching together. And so, he's still coaching. I got out of it about 2 years ago because I decided that I wanted to just watch my son. Like I'm like, I just want to follow you and watch you. I don't want to have to be, oh, I can't come to this game because I got to be over here with somebody else kid or whatever.
Yeah, can't do it.
I know, much to his chagrin, because I know he get tired of me yelling over the fence at it, which I do all the time. It's a package deal, brother. If I'm gonna pay for the cleats, I get to yell over the fence at you. But so when we talk about city conference programs, like you said, the lack of feeder systems, right? And so what people need to understand is most successful high school programs have a system in which kids maybe start in about 6th or 7th grade. They run one offense, they run one defense, and that same group of kids stays together through the whole duration, right? You get the average MPS program, it's so hard to get coaches. You're worried about game planning for varsity, and I know this is something we dealt with. You go to the freshman JV game, they running some offense, they done got off goddamn Madden. That's not what we run. Now, next year when they move up, they're not going to know our offense. So you're behind the 8 ball all the time already, because they don't know the verbiage or whatever. So to build that program, you have to have a feeder program. You have to have it takes, like, it has to be uniform. Everybody needs to be on the same page.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, because I believe there's still some openings right now in the city. And I've said a long time, when I come off my hiatus to coach, I wanted to maybe go back into the city, but it has to be enough support in the building. There has to be academic support. There has to be booster club support. There has to be community support, because football programs, it takes a lot to win in football. You got to have a bunch of different moving pieces. And that's another thing you always had, is people who were taking care of, maybe this sister did the paperwork, and this sister was processing, and so y'all could do coaching. Y'all could work with the kids. You didn't have to, hold on, let me go over here and get these papers signed. It was always a beautiful thing, man. And
Yeah.
I know I got pissed because I know Earl Ingram was the commissioner. And shout out to Earl Ingram, because he's doing something with kids now. He's still trying to help kids. I know. I try not to be negative, but I am sometimes. So everybody knows that. But I felt like, sometimes his attitude towards the kids, and towards some of the families was a turnoff for me. It was kind of a determining factor in me saying we're gonna move along. But I felt like okay, y'all need an infusion of youth. You need some young blood in there. So when you took over, I feel like it blow up it a little bit more. I feel like you kind of like because I remember coming a couple years later and you was kind of in charge. Oh, more teams, more. It looked like a more vibrant
Yeah,
kind of thing. So
yeah.
what did you want to accomplish when you stepped from I'm not just a coach now, I'm running the league. What did you want to accomplish and did you get it accomplished?
Well, I guess at the time, like, I kind of knew what Earl was going on. We had like ongoing conversation. I've known Earl pretty much my whole life, and basically, it was getting to the point, like, and people, I don't know if people really knew this, right? But it was getting to the point where, like, league wise, we needed to know, like, man, what the schedule was. Like, the quality was going down, and I knew Earl was kind of basically in some years kind of running this thing by himself. And I've sat at the top of that thing, and it's not easy to deal with. There's so many thoughts and opinions about what should be done, and trying to come to a consensus around all of that. I think without having a team, without having a team was tough, and it was wearing on them. And so I literally, I turned back to our team and I told them like, well, I'm like, the Falcons ain't nothing really without a league to play in. Like, I did my research as far as being able to move us to a suburban league. It's not as easy as you would think. All the Falcons, we just gonna go join another league. No, there's rules as to, where do these kids come from? What schools do they go to? Right. We weren't that feeder program, so we didn't fit that mold. And so I was like, well, we got to have NCSL. And so, man, I basically kind of turned to people that were closest to me at the time, like, yo, like, this is kind of what we're being faced with. And if we don't have anywhere to play, we're going to be out. So I kind of made the decision, and I asked a good core of people that were with me with the Falcons to come on with me to help take this monster on, basically. And with that, that just came with all the fresh ideas that, like, man, we could do this. We can add some graphic design. We can get some new logos. We could do the social media thing. We just never had the presence. NCSL has been there for years, but we just never had the presence. It's like people didn't know what we were doing. So now it's just like, okay, show everything that we're doing. Show the parents, show the. Sometimes we have these little balloon ceremonies. We had the cheerleadings, we had the kickoffs. Like, let's just put a whole bunch of energy into all of this. And it was beautiful when everything came together. All the head coaches, all the parent coordinators, all the parents, everybody just kind of supported everything, man. And it's still going on. It's bigger now than it was when I was there. So, man, it's just a beautiful thing, and definitely, support it. And what I wanted to say, going back to the high school piece, was I think it's important for, high schools to have those relationships, because with the Falcons, I had kids from the time that they was little Kev's age. They were 6 years old, and they don't leave me until 13, 14 years old. So in a sense, I am that feeder program. But again, we just don't have okay, you going to go to Madison, you going to go there. You got to have a relationship with the head, and, that's where you get your kids from.
Shout out to Ace Cooley in the chat room. And the funny part is, this is my brother who I went to a middle school with, and we met up on the other side of life because I was off playing football in Minnesota and just happened to be road tripping in South Dakota. And I went to middle school with his brother, and he was up there playing college football at the same time. And it was like, oh, snap. Like,
Yeah,
so he's another football player, went to Bayview.
that's what's up.
Got to give him shit about Bayview, right? But was a real good back, man. Was a real good running back, and he got his college education through that. So if you're just tuning in, it's the Big Black Sports Show. I got my brother Evan Kern, who was the actually the head of the Falcons organization, which was for years was probably the top Pee Wee League, Junior League football program in the city. And then he ran the NCSL, which is the Neighborhood Children's Sports League, which is still thriving to this day, but it's once again probably the most consistent and the largest youth sports organization in the city right now, especially when it comes to football, because a lot of leagues tried to spring up around the NCSL over the years. And I would see this kind of just kind of turnstile of teams going and coming, because I'd
Yeah,
be we be in a different league, and I look and I say, well, what they doing over here? I thought y'all was NCSL. Oh, nah, man, we got away from them, man. You know, and so it's like, then I look over and say, oh, they got this team now, they got that team. So, but the good thing is football, youth football is alive and well in the city.
Yeah.
But I agree with you, and I keep saying all these geniuses that run the city, all these people who don't know what to do with these young people right now. A lot of the reasons that our young people out here so wild right now is because they never really had something to hang their hat on. They never really found something that they love. See, everybody in the city wants to be a basketball player, but it ain't for everybody. AAU is not for everybody. The fees are sky high. I'm dealing with this shit now. The politics is super thick, right? It's good if your kid is, has a competitive nature and they want to do it. And I believe in supporting my son with whatever he wants to do. But football don't even take all of that. Football is literally, I'll pay whatever, here you go. Like, and a lot of teams, some teams say, no, you ain't got to buy this or that. Just give me the
For
fee
real?
and you can come on in. And so, but the high schools here, they don't have any relationships with the Pee Wee coaches. You know how many kids that I got that I would see as freshmen over my coaching career, in which I say, you ever played football before? And they say, yeah, I played. I played my whole life since I was 5 years old. I say, oh, who you play for? I played for the Saints. I'm just picking the Saints.
Right.
We won the championship. I was the MVP. And I say, okay, get down in the 3-point stance. And he couldn't get down in the stance.
Yeah.
I say, you play linebacker? Yeah. Let me see your drop step. He couldn't drop in pass coverage. He didn't know what a read step was. He didn't know how to use his hands. So
Yeah.
I said, what the hell are these Pee Wee League coaches teaching?
Yeah.
And then when I did coach Pee Wee League, I found out some of them don't teach shit. You big, just get up on the line and stand there and go chase the ball. And I think, and that's obvious because a lot of the coaches that are Pee Wee League coaches, when you put them and give them high school shots, they don't know a whole lot about the game. They don't know how to teach the game. So all you geniuses that's wondering how do we get the youth, we need to develop some real comprehensive sports programs for our youth that get them involved on a higher level.
Yeah, that
Not just
translate.
players. Yeah, not just the players. Cheerleaders. What about band? Why if we got all these black high schools, why don't they have HBCU style bands? And you can do battle of the bands at halftime. That's gonna attract people. That's gonna
Right.
get more kids involved into the program. So I just feel like the planning and the execution of really building a program is not there. I see you, shorty.
Man, literally, man, it's real. It's real. But no, coach, you got it. It's just like, if you can excite the kids when they're younger, like for me, it just football always had my attention. I never lost it, and I think sometimes, it's happened to me where I've had boys that have played, all the way through, but when they get to high school, maybe it's because of the relationship's not there or whatever, but they'll drop off and they won't even, like, I'm not interested in playing anymore. But again, if the football coaches knew who this kid was, right? Like, you don't let kids like that walk through the hallway if
Right.
you know what he's capable of doing. And it's just like, okay, we got to have like a genuine interest in these kids, right? And then again, teaching them the skills that translate, and some of it is just using the right language. If you're talking football, there's a certain language that, like you said, linebackers, that linemen speak, that when I say something, you should know it. It should be automatic for you, not what does that mean? And again, that's some of the stuff that we run into. But yeah, you just got to be like, if you coach youth football, like, I'm serious about my craft too. So I go to camps, I go to things where I can learn the latest techniques. They got the certifications online right now. It may
Yes.
take a little time to do it, but it's at your fingertips and it's the latest information that they're pressing out there. So part of it is your craft, and parents. You got to kind of, if you don't know, you got to be kind of curious and make sure your coach is kind of speaking a language, not just fussing and cussing at the kids all the time, but do you see them, with genuine instruction for it? Because I think that's a sign that just lets you know, am I just keeping my kids active, or are they really
Right.
here building and learning? And that was something that I think we focused on with the Falcons is, all right, we all gonna know this, and we can say it from the top down, and we can all roll out. So yeah, you gotta pay attention, parents, just to what's going on and what's a good fit for you.
And shout out to Ladella Greer, who's in the chat room. He said the parents aren't interested anymore. This is a brother who gave me my first shot at Madison High School a long time ago. And we coached together for a long time, man. And we had a lot of success. He's a coach of the year a couple times in the city conference. He's just went to Brown Deer. Um, and
Okay.
took over out there. So, like, that's why I say I have a
I heard
circle.
about a little takeover out there.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
So, like we had and coaching is a fraternity, right? Like it's a brotherhood. Like, and so you earn that title when somebody say, "What's happening, coach?" And that's how coaches let each other know, I recognize you when you
Respect.
say, "What's up, coach? What's up, coach?" As opposed to, "Oh, what's up, Bob?" No, you don't call him. He ain't no coach. He ain't no ball coach, right?
Yeah, it's almost disrespect.
Right. Like, yeah, you want to be. But you just hit on something very important. If you're gonna do it to really to hone your craft, to sharpen your blade, to go to camps, to go and do online certifications and be up on lingo and be up on concepts, because I can tell you right now the game has changed from when I
Right.
played it. When I
Yeah.
played it in the 90s, it was still, 2 inches in the cloud of dust. It was still the running game was, and most teams played power football. Now
Right.
you talk about spread. Now you
Yeah.
talking about, 50 passes a game, 5 receiver sets. You're talking about a whole different kind of concept to it. So if you ain't went and kept up on the trends, you're gonna be left behind. So I think, and I tell young coaches all the time when cats say, "Well, I want to coach, man. What should I do?" I'll say, "Well, first of all, don't learn the game off of a video game, right?
Yeah.
Watch as much college and pro as you can. Not that that's what those kind of athletes, but you learn what the game is doing. You learn how offenses are structured. You learn how the great coaches structured their teams. And I think if we start to do that, then we'll see an improvement in the quality of football in the city. Listen, I know that it looks bad right now, right? Because if you look at a lot of city conference teams, you say, But I think when people judge those kids and talk down on those kids, they forget that that's a group of kids that ain't on the street. That's a group of kids that are aspiring to something. And even if you get a chance to go JUCO, right? Like, cause I had to go JUCO first. I'm telling you, I was,
Game
screw up.
changer.
Yeah. And a lot of times you get to go JUCO, it changed my perspective. Cause I went to North Dakota and I hadn't really never been out the hood. I mean, I've been to Mississippi and all that with my family, but on my own as a teenager. And I vividly remember there was no sirens. And I grew up on Capitol Drive. So I'm like, it's got to be a fire or a
Yeah. Too
stabbing or
quiet out
shooting
here.
or somewhere. Like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, right.
But it opened up my perspective. And I said, you know what? I want to keep doing this. I want to
Yeah.
keep striving to do this. And like I said, I was able to go play some D1 and some D1 AA and then some. I didn't get to do the TCU thing like you, but I did get to finish up at a nice D2. So it was a great experience.
The
And
expo-
I
the
won't.
expo- the exposure to everything, like, man,
Yes.
that's just, I think that was the biggest thing for me was like, one, I left the city. Like, honestly, like when I graduated, I was getting ready to go to Marquette. I was signed, my papers were signed, I was ELP in, like I was in. But what happened was I got into TCU late. And when I found out I can go down there and play football, that was it. That was it. And so just being away from home, being away from the city, being out of Milwaukee is going to expose you to so many things. It's more than driving up and down the lake in traffic on Sherman, Summerfest, State Fair. I mean, all this stuff. I mean, you've done all this stuff by the time you're 17, 18.
Right.
So for me, it was just like, one, I left the city, but man, football could just, it just takes you so many places and it exposes you to so many different people. And for me, it was just like the structure of those programs. Like, you want to see what a D1 program looks like? Like, man, you up at 5:30, getting your workouts in, mandatory weigh-ins, mandatory study hall hours, film. Like, this is stuff like you may have little bits of it in high school, but you on a serious program. And you can't drop the ball. If you drop the ball, you're gonna drop on the depth chart. And ain't nobody coming to ask coach what's going on. Your mama ain't there, your daddy ain't there to say nothing. And if you can't fend for yourself, it just is what it is. And so I think that's, again, you talk about the youth levels. I think youth levels is great for just, again, bringing certain things out of your kid, just exposing them to certain things. But at a certain point, there is a separation, I guess, of kids that really want it, right? And those are the kids that, are putting themselves in more pressured situations. They're doing more work. And so that's kind of what I ended up doing is I stepped away from NCSL and I kind of created this off-season platform. And basically it's just around doing a little extra work. Like you can't just go to practice and think that that's going to be enough for you to be the player that you want to be. Like
Oh,
let's be real, right? You said Lil Kev was going to practices with you. He was watching the games at home. The stuff that you do away from the field, and the stuff that you do on the off days, like that stuff matters. And if you're wondering why you ain't as good as such and such, well, such and such always in the gym. Such and such always working on their craft. And it's very hard to catch up to somebody like that when you ain't doing the work. And so we're just kind of talking about some different things related to youth sports, but it's just a platform just to, kind of keep talking about things. And so I can still stay hands-on because I always love just kind of working with guys individually or in groups. Like I like working with the kids and showing them different things.
now I have to say this because you're talking about getting out of the hood. I actually met my wife my junior year in college. So when I say getting out, and I'm gonna tell you, long as I was here on the mean streets of Capitol Drive in Atkinson, wasn't no girlfriend happening because I was, it was a different kind of mindset, But just because I was at peace, I was cool, I was off at school, I was doing my thing. And I said, okay, you know what? I think I'm finna, be serious about a relationship with a girl instead of just, knocking them down.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't want my wife to be like, you was knocking them down, huh? But
That's what you said.
she know the story, right? It's an album, not a 45. But no, I met my wife in school. But here's two things that you touched on that I love. Number one, football games are not won during the season. They're won during the off season. The work that you put in, the weights that you lift, the camps that you go through, the workouts that you go through, that's what's going to give you that advantage because you only got a month and a half, 2 months in the fall. Like you got the shortest
eight
season.
games, yeah.
Right. Like you got the shortest season. So it's a year-round commitment. And I can tell you, like, I can only imagine how a TCU would have been because I know even the schools that I went to, as long as they was paying for you to go there, it was your job, right?
Yeah.
So if they was paying your tuition, you right. I got to be at the field house at 6 a.m. I done ran 2 miles and did drills. I got my 8:30 class. I got a meeting at 11. I got to lift at 1. I got practice in the evening. Then I got meetings after that to watch film. So it's a full-time thing. But you know what? Those brothers that you go through that with are your brothers for life. Like I right now, I got brothers all over this country. And they'll call me and be, KB, woo, woo, woo. And, like some of them have found the show. We were put into the Hall of Fame at the College of Science in North Dakota.
Nice.
And I remember it was the first time that team had gotten together just since we all left and went our separate ways. And it was crazy. It was crazy because of how we all related and the love of each other was still there because of that experience that we went through. And we talked about a lot of different memories, and it was just like, man, and almost everybody in that group right now, if you need something, you can call on them and say, hey man, and I've even had brothers say, man, so and so is doing bad, Kev. Let's look out for him, right? And we get Annie up, right?
Yeah.
And so I tell kids that, like, cream rises to the top.
Yeah.
Don't you want to be part of that? You want to be in that clique. You want to be part of, because I realized at a time in college, we was them dudes on campus. Everybody wanted to kick it at our house. The girls wanted to be with us. People wanted to be around us because we was them dudes, but it was an exclusive circle. It was football. It was these football players, right?
And you can't get into the circle unless you're doing the work. I think that's the thing is like you can't be in the circle just because of whatever, like you could be such and such a little brother, but if you're not doing the work, and I think when you're doing the work, that's when the game gets fun, right? You know what I'm saying? Like you talk about, I'm in the inner circle now, and things are cool. Everybody want to kick it, but you can't get there until you do the work. And a lot of times, we find ourselves either frustrated, jealous, but hopefully, you taking that and fueling that into your workouts, you know what I'm saying, to help you get into the circle. So yeah, that's what's needed.
Shout out to my boy George Terry, who is another high school and college teammate of mine. He said coaches are great role models and teachers. You brothers make a difference in these young people's lives. Ladella Greer said bands should start in Pee-wees. I agree. Listen, when I think about football, I think about about all the kids being involved in it, not just the team. Because there's kids who can be trainers. There's kids who can be
Yeah.
video, take just video games. It's so many roles that you can give to kids to keep youth involved, and you never know where that's going to take them, right? And so I agree that if you can get, but I say, where's the partnerships from the community? I
Yeah.
keep seeing I keep seeing our new mayor, and we've talked about, because on Outlaw Radio we get really heavily socio-political, right? Like, and so I talk about this black mayor and all these, the black seven, the Milwaukee seven, of all these black executive leaders that we have, and we see youth behavior. And what's your answer? I'm going to put a curfew on and for kids downtown, and I'm gonna move the curve, and I'm gonna make the streets slimmer. You fucking it up for people like me who got to get to work, that ain't driving a Stoli, that ain't doing reckless driving, because you ain't came up with a solution to deal with the youth, right? The reality of this is if you make it a thing, like if you make it so it's a badge of honor for kids to be athletes, that means we're going to throw community support. I'm talking about Friday Night Lights, where the radio stations is out, the police are out there making sure people are safe. It's a
Yeah.
band, it's a battle of the bands, it's a dance competition. Everybody's involved, and you make sure people are safe. Once again, you got to stress safety in our community by having the right presence from law enforcement to make sure everything goes smoothly. You'll start to watch that youth crime go down, because it only
Yeah.
take one kid to blow up from the city and have his name all over everything, and then there'll be 20 other boys saying, I'm gonna be just like dude. I'm gonna
Yeah.
do what dude did. I'm gonna be him. But as it stands, we got to send our kids elsewhere. And a lot of times our parents send our kids off to I say us parents send our kids off to schools far out thinking, well, that's better, but they go out there and get called nigger. They go out there and get treated like shit. They got to fight a different battle. And I don't know what's wrong with you. Why you? Because Brookfield Central ain't treating you like it should. Because goddamn Burlington, when you went into the stadium or when you went into the field house to play basketball, there was a bunch of white people with some signs that said "Go home, nigger," and all this kind of stuff. When we really should be taking a system like MPS that has a $2 billion budget. I'm gonna say that one more time. MPS currently has a $2 billion+ budget. There should be no stone left unturned. But we as a community are not demanding better from them. We're not doing what we need to do to say, look, goddamn it, why? Oh, we want all of our campuses improved. We want athletics. We want more money put into athletics. We want strength and conditioning coaches put into our schools, because our kids need to know about health and wellness too, because that's one of the issues too, is a lot of them don't eat right. They have no idea what nutrition is. They have no idea how to physically develop their bodies, right? And I can tell you one thing from working in the inner city with kids is where we lose at is not the skill positions, it's up front, because those kids in the burbs got time to eat the weights. They got time to get stronger. They have strength and conditioning coaches. It's hard to get a weight room full of kids in a city conference school, especially in the off season. And kids are, I got to work, coach. I got to keep my little sister and my little brother, because my mama working 2-3 jobs because she's part of the working poor. I'm on my soapbox, I know, but this is how I get when it comes to what's going on in Milwaukee. Because, like I said, there was still some respect in city conference football when I played. There was still some respect. Like you had to respect Washington. You had to respect Marshall. You had to respect Custer. On a good year, you had to respect King or Madison or Vincent. But for the most part, there was some tough kids. There was some tough guys. There was a Key and Bonnie Coleman's. There was, like you talked about Polk them dudes were studs, Bennett and all these dudes. It just over the last 10 years just kind of went down the toilet. And I'm just like, we can't have a school system that's 85% black and have the worst athletic programs. How is that even possible, right? Like, so
Yeah.
if you were handed a position right now and they said, this is your program to build. So you said you're coaching at MAS,
Yeah.
and they say, we're gonna give you the keys to the Benz. You whatever you want goes. Where you started, where do you start building that program at? Where would you start building it at?
I mean, I don't know. It's I guess it all depends on kind of where you are and what group you have. Obviously, you have to. I got to get me a group of guys and teach them how to work to the standard that we need to play at. Right. So as long as I get me 12, 15 guys, you know what I'm saying? That's what I used to think when I was coaching the Falcons. I can get 15 guys, right, and teach them how to do it, right? They'll be the role models for everybody else coming after them. And so I always just, in a sense, kind of start to think pipeline. I know what it meant for me to be, the captain, or the one leading the stretches. When I went away to college, I was like, man, I was like scared to get in trouble because, like, man, if the Falcons ever seen me on TV for something bad, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I just couldn't live that down, right? And so we just can't, knock or downplay how much, again, being that role model really kind of factors into just natural leadership for those kids. And especially you talking about kids, right? Kids just kind of fall in line. They just do what the older kids are doing. And so I think if you start, with the older kids and get them to a mode where they're working hard and they're winning, right? Then that kind of sets the example for the rest of the kids. But you did mention one other thing. It was just like partnerships. Like that's really what's needed in the city. Like, going back to the Falcons, like, man, if we could have partnered up and got some new uniforms, some years we did, right? And we got new uniforms. That attracts more parents. That attracts more cheerleaders. They want to be a part of that, right? And then in the same sense, like it also puts pressure on other teams, right, to kind of step their game up too. And so literally you didn't think about this, but your $1,500 now just had a domino effect, across. And just because it's not a visible or a tangible, item or whatever, but it still had an effect. And so in some cases you can see that. And so I definitely agree with the partnerships, like find some of these programs and even, whoever you can find and support them because all these things matter to kids. Kids are looking for things to attach themselves to that are like new, flashy. This is the new thing, right? And we can't do that if we got old uniforms, old equipment. We playing on these lumpy fields. When I work out with kids, I don't want to go to Lincoln Park. I don't want to go to McGov. I want to go to a turf. Well, we got to go out to Whitefish Bay, or we got to go out, somewhere. And obviously, we got some places in the city now too. But I think it's all part of it. So I can't point to just one thing, but those are just some of my coaching philosophies that I'm like, okay, if I'm gonna build this thing out, right, here's where I would start, and do those few things.
I'd start with the partnership aspect, but I'd also start with establishing character development. Okay. And I mean establishing accountability right away.
Right.
Academic support. Like for me, it's not enough to have an athlete and say, I expect you to do all of these great things on your own. So in order to play for my team, there's a study table requirement. There's mandatory grade checks. There's community events that you must participate in. There's character development. But like you said, I'm going to the community and I'm putting it on their hands. Because I'm going to go to them and say, listen, this is about supporting the youth. This ain't and also I want to be transparent with people to say the money you give does not go to me, right?
Right.
You be able to anytime you want to request a copy of these books, it's there. You want to see where your donation went? I walk you all the way to the receipt. And what you see this goddamn Gatorade order? That's part of what I used your shit for because we ordered
Right.
Gatorade for the season. I feel like if you build it, they will come. And I've always felt that way. Now I do understand. And I hate to use this school as an example, but I worked one time in a capacity in North Division. And I know, and shout out to those brothers who over there, Kadima and the brother Harrell who coaches football, but you just don't have enough ammunition. You don't have enough to fight with. But they show up year after year. But I'm saying when they came to me to ask me about, because at the time I was coaching for Washington, I think we must have, I stood up at the teachers meeting early in the year and said, well, I coach for Washington. I want y'all to know we're going to blow y'all out 75-0 when we play y'all. They laugh like, oh my God. Yeah, I'm dead ass. We're going to stomp y'all. Right. And we did. But the talk became, well, why don't you come over here? And I was like, no, because this is a career killer. Because I'm not going to be able to get what I needed. Now I was short-sighted when I said that because they have a very strong alumni group and they have a community full of people because regardless of what they tell you on TV, the majority of those people who live over there are not bad people. There is a negative element,
Right.
but there's a lot of people who would be willing, hey, man, I'll support y'all if that's what y'all going to do. But those boys got to show up raking leaves. They got to show up helping, going to the elderly, cutting their grass. They got to become an integral part of the community, and that's character development. And
Yeah.
that's what I say I would start with first. We're gonna be accountable for us, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not, and I tell them, um, I'll give anybody a second chance, right? Because I got second chances, but I don't tolerate no bullshit, right? Like, cause you're not gonna embarrass what we doing, because we're about to put a lot of work in, and you ain't gonna bring us down. And
Right.
my experience of working with teenage felons was that when we provided kids who had never had any structure, nobody had ever expected anything of them or even told them that they had the ability to amount to anything. When we provided them with that at St. Charles, those kids responded. Those kids came through the door and they hated me because listen, you ain't finna fuck up my money or my shift. Y'all gonna sit down and act right, or I'm locking this whole goddamn unit down, right? And it was the kid who couldn't stand me when I walked through the door that by the time he's leaving, he want to grab me and say, KB, can I call you sometimes, man? And I just, I want to hang out with you. I like talking with you, playing the game. And I'm
Mhm.
like, it's cool. It's cool. Sometimes I stayed in touch with him. Sometimes I didn't. But I said all that to say that when you give kids structure and consistency, a lot of times it'll work.
Yeah.
It'll work. And we got to get involved in it in that way. I see you, Rick Stewart. He said, "What up? What's happening, my brother?" If y'all just tuning in, I got this brother Evan Kern on. He's just been a staple of the community for working with young people for years. I'm glad to hear you moved up to the high school level, right? I'm glad to hear that. And I know when we get off the show, I know some brothers are gonna come and say, "Hey, man, I need coaches over here, man. Tell that brother." Have you been able to bring any? Because you had a lot of cats who coach with you,
Yeah.
that were passionate about it. Have any of them? Have you brought any of them with you, or like where some of them brothers are? What are they doing now?
No, so a lot of the coaches, one, I came into a good situation, right? Like when I got there, right, the Falcons were already in good shape. My uncle, Coach Freddie, Coach Hollowell, Coach Boyd, man, we had a nice staple of people there, and I think all of them, they were waiting for the young guys to come in. So when I came in with right, like three guys. Two of them are my cousins, and the other one I feel like I've known my whole life. And we were just that breath of fresh energy that felt like, okay, we can kind of take a step back. And so that's kind of what they did. A lot of them did come over to NCSL with me. So a lot of them are, in a sense, kind of running NCSL, part of the board. Some of them have just kind of stepped away from coaching altogether. But then also some of the guys that are my age, like they just got young families now. Like,
Okay.
I got a 2-year-old now, and so it's not easy to be volunteering your time. I think that's one thing. We just had a whole hour conversation about, in some cases, man, this is volunteer work. This is in some cases a thankless job. When I'm taking kids home and I'm driving them around. Sometimes I gotta buy them food. I'm staying at the park late. Like, man, I'm doing all of these things. But at a certain point, when you got a young family, like, man, I got a wife, I got a young son at home. I couldn't spend 7 or 8 hours at the park. I couldn't spend that time. And so I think a lot of us are just kind of in that stage now where we got to do the family thing right now. But obviously it's still in us. And like I said, we just kind of got off season right now where, okay, we're still working with some guys. We're just doing extra work. So our workouts now usually take place when you're not going to have like team events or anything like that. And that's where I really try to keep up with any of my old players, or anybody that wants to get some extra work. Like that's the kind of the lane where I'm like, all right, I want to find the guys that really want it. We do the off season thing. But for me, I just had the opportunity to, to work with the coaches and work on staff at MAS. And I love what those guys are doing, like what we're doing over there. Definitely just, I think it's a breath of fresh energy. And I think it's going to bring some of that attention that I talked about initially, where we want kids, we want Penn State coming here. We want, these schools in the Midwest. I couldn't understand why kids from Detroit and Grand Rapids, are all on the Michigan staff, but we don't have not one kid from Wisconsin on or Milwaukee on the Wisconsin on team. So those are things that just bother me. So we're just kind of part of just trying to change that narrative and bring some more attention here, because like I said, the talent is here. We just got to give them the right tools and put them in the right environment where they'll blossom out of here. And I hope it does become a hotbed for for schools all over the nation, not just the Midwest, to come get these kids because it's a life-changing opportunity to be able to play ball at the next level.
Yes, it is. Now I have to ask you this because you talked about having a family, like, and so
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. When I came to the Falcons, my daughter was probably about 7. I was probably about 10 or 11, and my son was just, just 7 years old still. But because I was a coach, a lot of times what I did was I took him with me, right? So that's why I say when he was 3, when I first started coaching, and it got to the point where his mama would show up and say, "You want to come with me?" And he would say, "No, I'm gonna
Nope.
stay here with my dad." Right? And so it kind of it moved him more towards me, and him and our relationship. I mean, he's my son, so we was gonna be tight anyways. He just didn't know it because I was just gonna get, a certain age, or you're gonna have to come off mama lap, but it
Right.
just happened because he wanted to get into sports. So I know what it's like. My point is, I know coaching sometimes takes a lot, man, and I know you have to be that dude who I got to take this kid home. This
Yeah.
kid ain't had nothing to eat. I've had kids that, in particular, one of my favorite players, one of my best players ever. I pretty much supported him in any way I could all the way up until he got a master's degree. Like I
Wow.
sent him money when he was in college, right? Like I
Wow.
and
Yeah.
and he gave me the gratitude, and still to this day I talk to him, and he still called me coach. I'm like, well, you don't have to call me coach no more. You can call me Kevin now. He like, it
Hey,
wouldn't be right, coach. It
no.
wouldn't be. I'm like, you like 26 years old now, man. You gotta call me coach no more.
No,
But
you always gonna be coach.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and so I guess what I'm saying is I want brothers to understand that even on a coaching staff, it's not just about the X's and O's, dude. Sometimes it's the utility dude who can just, hey man, I do that. I set the field up for you. He just along, he's observing. He might come to say, hey, they in this or they in that. But he has an impact on the kids. He has, he becomes part of the family. He becomes, and the kids remember him too and say, yeah, he wasn't no coach, but man, everybody loved dude.
Right.
So if more brothers were involved, right? I just feel like AAU with basketball, even though it can be negative in some regards, it keeps kind of like it keeps basketball pointed in a certain direction because kids want to be part of that. They
Right.
want to be on one of those teams. I look at when I go out of town with my son on an AAU trip, they just want to be walking around the gym with the
Geared
backpack
up.
on, and just they might not win the game, but
Right.
they feel like, hey, I'm a hooper, right? Like so kids want to be part of something, man. And
Yeah.
we do a piss poor job in Milwaukee of providing positive things for them to be a part of. And like you said, once they leave you, and you may have been the only real male role model that they had, and even to the point where sometimes the mama call you and say, you need to talk to little him and little whatever, because he acting up in school. When he get away from you and he get to high school,
Yeah.
then he get thugged out. He hit a little weed, meet a couple chicks, get a little taste of that. I'm supposed to not say chicks, right? I'm supposed to say women, right? But I don't know. I'm old school. But he, how it be. Brother get a little hair on his top lip. Hit a little weed, get a little girl.
That's
Want to get in a
the
little drama sometimes. Want to be a thug, and then they just forget about sports. And there's nobody at home to say, no, 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 not gonna happen.
yeah.
You're gonna do something.
Yeah.
You're gonna do something, right? And so
Yeah.
you're right, man. We got to figure out how to keep these boys going when they get done playing for the Falcons or get done playing for the Ravens or whoever they had all this glory with to keep going.
I mean, you know what it is though. Like, man, I'm playing. If I'm playing in the 13U or the major level, like if that coach from Tech come holler at me, like you know what I'm saying. Like that's what I remember. I was at Lincoln. I was at LCA on the east side, and Tech would be at the basketball games, and like, man, that was like the best thing because I might be like, man, I may be able to get me a hoodie or something, or whatever it is, right? That was like, okay, I'm being recruited. It was that being sought after, and if I know I'm being sought after, if I'm in the 7th grade. Like, ain't no way I'm gonna think about dropping this, But again, if we just don't, I think a lot of times, right? Like, we just gotta have that relationship. I gotta want to know the kids when they're in the 6th grade and the 7th grade. I've been watching these kids. The kids in NCSL, I've been watching for years. Like, you know what I'm saying? And I've watched them just develop, right? And so I know, kind of what the strengths are, the weaknesses, but they've been there, right? And so I think, just coming up with that type of energy. Like, man, I know that. I know that's where I'm going. That used to be a big thing for us. I'm going to Vincent next year. Where are you going next year? right?
Mhm.
That's the kind of energy that we got to create. And so I don't know what we doing, high school wise, kind of recruit now, but it's all changing. But we got to be out here because the kids need that attention. Because that's what I tell them. If you do this right in practice, when you do it in the game, them high school coaches gonna come get you. And that's
Right.
what I want. I want you to come. I want you to come talk to this kid afterwards because he's been working hard, and I've been telling him to do this and be a leader. And when you can see that from across the field, like, man, I've done my job as a youth coach, and right, and as a high school coach, I got to want to come in on something that's already got a good foundation, and I know what I'm going to do with them. That's what they do in college. They look at you. You may be a buck 75, but they know they got the strength and conditioning program. I could put 20 kids on that kid, and I can get him faster, and whatever else is needed, right? You got to look at that potential and just want to grab it. So yeah, that's kind of, man, that's definitely what I would preach and advocate: partnerships and those relationships in the city.
Now y'all do a podcast too, because I seen your podcast. When is the podcast on? So if people want to check it out, when is it on?
Man, I just got it off the ground. So it's pretty, just kind of here and there right now, but working on getting consistent. But it's basically just around having conversations with some of these programs that we see, right? Some of the people that are youth trainers, basketball, football. I like all sports. And so I probably will get into some other things too. But I just want to sit down with those programs and just provide some education because I don't think, again, parents, you may not see all this, you may not know about it, but there's people tuned in right now that care about this stuff because it's the backstory behind what you see. Everything ain't, just what you see. There's a lot of people that had to do a lot of work to help us get here. And we just want to talk about it because there ain't enough conversation about
No doubt. Well, like I say, man, with the People's Network, I've been doing this for a long time, and I always extend my hand if there's any support that you need, any events that you want to promote. Um, Open door policy. You're welcome to come on whenever you want to. And I'm gonna add you to the People's News Network. That way, when your podcast is on, because the People's News Network, which is my group, I allow right now a lot of cats to promote their platforms there. Okay. Because when I first started doing this, there was Homer Blow, and that was it. He was the only one doing internet radio. Right. And like, I know a lot of people thought when I said that I'm about to start doing an internet radio show, they thought I was crazy. Right. My bachelor's is in radio and television. I'm high siding a little bit on
it.
4 years.
Okay.
My bachelor, one of my degrees, one of my multiple college degrees is in radio
Yeah.
and television. So when I started doing this, I know there was nobody that would support me. There was nobody who was saying, Kev, and no disrespect, but even Homer was like, nah, go away from me, boy. Do what you do, right? So I said, you ain't said nothing but a word.
Yeah.
So I always extend my hand to anybody who's trying to do this because it's an excellent way to pass information and build networking in our community. So I'll add you to the People's News Network whenever y'all is on. We'll share it in there, let people see it. Because like I said, man, I go there and people put all kinds of other platforms and shows in there. And sometimes I want to be like, I'm gonna take this shit out of here, but I don't. Right? I don't. I'm like, let the people decide, what's worthy and what's not, because there's a lot of brothers here who are trying to establish platforms. So I'm definitely in support of you with that, man. I haven't made my return to coaching yet. I think because I had to have back surgery, so I'm
Oh,
recovering from that. But I'm gonna get back on the sideline. I've already made my mind up because I missed the Friday night lights. I even missed the grind, the camp, and when it's 105 and I'm out there with the big straw hat on, screaming at kids and cussing them out. And
yeah.
miss all of that. So I'm gonna get back into that, but I'm looking to build and establish partnerships when I do it. Now I just seen your shorty.
Yeah.
Would you let your boy play tackle football?
Yeah. I mean, if it's something, I ain't gonna force him to do it,
Right.
but I think it's something that if he wants to play. I mean, I did it, and I think, there's a way to do it. Like, if you're playing football, one, if you ain't trying to get hit, you ain't gonna get hit. You gonna get out the way, you're gonna fall down, you're gonna find a way to avoid it. And so at that time, again, you just have good coaches that can ease you into it, a little bit. We just kind of see where it goes. But I took the same approach as you. It's like this: my son may not want to play football. He may not want to play sports at all. And so I'm paying attention to. He's kind of like this little techie kind of. He likes taking things apart. He likes cars. And so I'm really just kind of going with the flow with him. But if he ever wanted to come and play, we'll ease him into it, and then just kind of see, see where he's at.
And y'all was safe, okay?
Yeah,
Because I was there. I would come, and I was always around, and I know the difference. I know when you're not even teaching that kid right. Like,
right.
you all stress keeping your head up on the tackle. You all stress getting your pads down. And football is one of those games where I heard what you said about not wanting to get hit, but you're gonna get hit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You
One
are.
day you're
Yeah.
gonna get
If you
smoked.
step out there, you gonna get.
Gonna get smoked. And at
Yeah.
that point, business decisions are made. That's what Deion Sanders call them. Business decisions are made where you say, either I'm gonna get that fool back, I love this, or I think I'm going to hoop.
I don't
Right?
want no parts of.
I don't want no parts of this. But y'all taught it safe. So I think it's important that parents a lot of times know what safety is in terms of football. And when a kid says, I'm dinged, he's dinged. It ain't like when I was young when they'd be like, you get your ass back out there. No, 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 no. He's dinged. And as a
Yeah.
good coach, when your player, you say, nah, son. Even if he say, no, coach, I'm good. You straight, man. Just have a seat. We get you
Yeah.
evaluated. And so all those things come into play, man. I'm very, very appreciative of you taking your time, man, to come on in with me tonight. Like I said, you're welcome to come back. Because I like to have this conversation about, because what people hear me say all the time is I really want to restore some of the glory to city conference football. And I'm call me an egomaniac, but I feel like I'm one of them dudes who can do it because I know how to build a program, right? And I know how to work with these youth. I've been doing it forever. And so I'm getting to the point where I'm seeing some writing on the wall for me to kind of take my place, right? And so I definitely support what you're doing. Welcome to the high school game. I'm so glad that you coach in high school because uh, the game needs a brother like you. These young brothers, they need somebody like you that has got his head on straight, that represents positivity, man, to work with them. So, and I know you'll attract, just by you being involved, you're gonna be able to attract a bunch of other positive brothers to
I hope
get
so.
involved, man. Um, so I'm gonna let you go. I didn't mean to keep you this long, man. I know you got to get with your family, but I'm grateful you came. You got anybody you want to shout out to? Anybody you want to kind of big up while you're on here?
Oh man, I just gotta definitely shout out the family. I was just thinking about that earlier. None of this is really possible without the support at home. So my wife, and again my son, my crew at off season. Those are my guys that I've been running with. That have, again, just kind of been taking these pivots with me through it all. As we just kind of we're growing up, but still trying to find ourselves attached to the game. Obviously NCSL, everybody running NCSL, the coaches and the teams there. I'm definitely going to be there on Saturday, and for sure MAS, and the Falcons. All my squads basically. What's up? Appreciate y'all.
You wasn't too hurt about the Bucks loss, was you?
No, I can't say I was. Boston is like my second team, so I was like, man, when I saw we only had about 4 players really playing, I was like, they ain't gonna beat Boston. So
Listen, I picked Boston, and I said the Bucks didn't have enough firepower, but without Middleton, damn, they was. But shout
man,
out to
Grayson Allen didn't show up at all, man.
him or Connaughton. It was a lot of people, and Budenholzer to me is an idiot because he didn't use his whole bench. That boy, that young guard he got should have been playing. I can't
Yeah,
remember his name. He was shooting the hell out the ball all
with the
year,
headband, yeah.
playing
Parker
defense. And somebody tell me where the hell Serge Ibaka is? What the hell? What do we trade for? Come on,
didn't
man.
see that. Didn't see that, man.
Yeah, what was this? Was this dude like at the bar or something? Like, I don't know, man. Was he at the liquor store?
We just
But
needed another. We just needed another 10 from somewhere.
yeah, but I don't think a lot of people understand that this has been an unprecedented period of time for the Bucks because I wasn't alive in the 70s when they was the powerhouse. I was alive in the 80s when the Bucks went to the Eastern Conference Finals a bunch of times and was always in the playoffs, but I never seen them cross the threshold and get the ship like they did last year. So
Yeah,
I still feel good about that, and I feel like a couple right decisions here and there, they'll be back. And Giannis should retire with at least 3 rings, at least 3. If not, you wasted his career. Just like Aaron Rodgers, if he doesn't get another Super Bowl before he's gone, the Packers wasted his career. He should have at least 2 or 3. So,
you gotta
and
respect. Yeah,
yeah,
respect the
yeah,
greats.
yeah, man. So, my brother, I'm glad you came, and I want to tell people this is what I'm talking about when I speak on intentional solidarity. I like to show and prove that we as brothers are on the same accord, man. We're all on code, man. And for all of you, people out there who talk about black men and not to them, this show is dedicated to you. This is why I do a platform with brothers for brothers, because everybody talks about us, but they don't talk to us, and they want to pigeonhole us and say we ain't fathers and we ain't role models and we ain't mentors and we ain't husbands. Like I seen when this Will Smith bullshit happened, they was talking about the black man don't protect his woman. I don't know what brothers you've been hanging around, right? Because if somebody fuck with mine, I push the button, right? Like, and so I know a lot of brothers that's on the same deal. So I love to be able to show positive brothers in the community. Earl Henning said he hasn't seen you since you got married. Earl Henning is in the chat room. He's a supporter of the People's Network. He said, tell Evan Kern I haven't seen him since he got married.
I'm still around.
Right. So, man, like I said, man,
in the cut.
It's all about intentional solidarity. I'm still moving towards my One Nation podcast, and we ain't gonna just talk about solidarity. We ain't gonna just try to save the world with a podcast. We're really gonna hook up and get together, man, because you make more impact with a fist than you do with a slap, even though slapping somebody can be effective as well. But I'm just saying. So listen, everybody has a role to play, man. And if you ain't with us, you are entirely against us. But we always close every show on the People's Network by saying, in the words of the great Willie D, if your criticism of the black community outweigh your contribution of it, you probably a coon. I'll see y'all tomorrow night for Outlaw Radio, man. Thank you for coming, my brother. Peace and love, man. Good luck on your season, man.
Appreciate y'all.
All right, y'all.
These niggas wishy-washy, snitchy like they got shit. I remember back to days on money in my pocket. Now I'm styling like a rich nigga's closet. Now hear my Samuel Hill voice. What's in your wallet? I got that fire. I got that fire. I got that fire. I got that fire. I got that fire.